Hi, I'm Kathleen Murf+E, and welcome to Murf+E Unfiltered Zero BS Biz Talk. I'm here today with my co-host, Eliot Grossman. How are you, Eliot?
Murf, it has been a long time. I'm doing great. How you doing?
It feels like forever. I'm doing well, and we're into October, which is marvelous, and it's 70 degrees out where we are, so a small miracle, I'll take it.
Safely distanced.
And safely distanced, that's right, exactly. So today we are going to be talking about the subject of being misunderstood. And as we know, this is a subject that probably a lot of people might want to tune a little bit closer into, because I'm sure that there are plenty of people that potentially have at one point in life or another felt misunderstood. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to read a little something about the overview for this particular topic just to kind of get us started and launch then into our discussion of this.
Let's do it.
Excellent. So once in a while, everyone has the thought cross their mind that they might not be fully understood. It could be situational or more pronounced and feel as if it applies to all aspects of your life, work, and perhaps the team that you're on. No one is immune from being and feeling misunderstood at some point in their lives. What if suddenly you were no longer misunderstood? I love that thinking. It's very inspiring just in terms of feeling as if everything that we say and do, people just, they get it. But in the reality is that's not the case, as we know. Mm-hmm. And it would just be really wonderful if, take for example, even our just daily routines that we go through, if people didn't comment on them or think that they were at all strange. But we all have our routines, and sometimes we get even criticized for those. You know, I wake up in the morning, have my routine of coffee, breakfast, take a walk, read some emails, take a look at what's happening news-wise, and then launch basically into work. And that's my routine. It's nothing crazy out of the ordinary. I may, from time to time, do a meditation just to, kick my day off, but that doesn't happen all the time. But it's somewhat of a routine. But what if we didn't feel constrained in terms of being misunderstood? Because I think a lot of times when we are feeling misunderstood, we have this sense of we have to be a different person or act differently, and that's unfortunate. So in the spirit of thinking about this topic, what have you ever woken up one day and felt what it might be like if you were perfectly understood?
No, I never have. You sent me these notes weeks ago, and this is episode 22.
That's right.
This is the hardest topic that I've ever had to think about, write about, and discuss. Sure. To be honest with you, because I haven't. What's it like? We're not perfect.
No.
So misunderstood means so many things to so many people.
It can.
And so for me, I don't know, I'm well aware that I'm an acquired taste. Either like love me or hate me. So I am an acquired taste. And I get it because I'm a little different and I'm a little unique, both personally and professionally. At least I try to be, and I don't force it. So I don't know if there is such a thing as, have I ever felt misunderstood? Obviously, thousands, millions of times.
Sure. Do
I ever feel like I wake up, everything's perfectly and not misunderstood? No.
Right.
No. How about you?
I would say, I think about this quite frequently. I think back to maybe the time when I realized that perhaps what I was doing in my life was a little bit different, especially as a younger child. And one of the memories that sticks out in my mind was how when I was younger and I was at the age where my mother would allow me to get dressed and figure out what I was going to wear that day on my own,
right,
that I would routinely put these combinations of clothes together that, let's just say they may not have been the most fashionable combinations ever imagined. And I think my mother would cringe every morning when she would see me. But I would put my combinations of clothes together based on not what anybody cared about, but about what made me feel happy. And if I liked certain colors, whether they went together or not. I didn't understand fashion at that time. I was probably 6 years old,
right,
however old I was.
Right.
And so I just did it for that reason. But I think that was probably the first moment in time when I realized that my mother was having a reaction to what I was doing, to being misunderstood, because she didn't understand that I actually had thought about this as a concept at a very young age, and I was okay with that. And
Well, you spoke, and let me jump in for a quick second.
Yes.
So you talked about constraint
yes,
prior.
yes,
Well, at 6 years old, you felt constrained.
I did.
I don't want to be dressed like my mom wants me to dress.
No.
You started your own Project Runway at 6 years old.
I did.
Right?
And
So think about that. I don't want to be constrained. I don't want to feel, being constrained is such a challenge.
it is.
And
A lot of
whether
work.
it's in fashion or however you look at your life.
That's right.
And part of that, when you talked about your fashion, and it's in the notes, that's where you felt misunderstood.
Exactly.
Right?
From a very early age.
From a very early age.
And so I look at fashion as a sense of an extension of someone's personal brand.
Sure.
And so I guess back then, little did I know that I'd go into a career of marketing, but maybe that was an early hint, right, in my life. And then obviously on to coaching and working with other people about that. But the fact of the matter is that I felt more confident when I made my own decisions and choices versus having somebody else make them for me, even at such a young age, to understand that was making me feel like I understood myself and somebody didn't understand me. But I was okay with that.
Yeah, so isn't that interesting, right? So we talked about constraint, and someone was okay with you, but you were okay with it. That allows us, when you're able to break away from the constraints.
That's right.
Whether you were 6, 8, 9, or 39, and you realize my personal brand, and if it starts with fashion, right, you always dress great, always have. So part of that is it allowed you to grow and change personally and professionally. So you're breaking away from those handcuffs and those chains in a sense, and your constraints were all of a sudden, I'm going to do, this is my path, this is my career, this is my brand, and now this is my fashion brand.
That's right, exactly. And I feel that the more that you know about yourself, and whether that be based on the topic of fashion, or you know what your hobbies are, or you know what kind of people you like to hang out with, or what makes you laugh. We were talking about comedy earlier. Those are all really important aspects of having yourself be understood first before anybody else can understand who you are.
Sure.
So, because there are going to be plenty of instances in life where you're going to have to explain yourself, whether somebody's overtly saying, I don't get you, or please explain what you're talking about because I have no idea what you're doing or why. So in terms of not being understood, have there been situations where you've been around somebody else where you've helped them to potentially be better understood?
Yeah, so once again, it's taken me a while to really get through this topic and put some deep thought into it, but I have, because I truly believe that I'm more of an extrovert than probably a lot of people, and I'll talk
Absolutely.
to anybody, and I talk
Yes.
a lot, right? God knows I talk a lot. But part of that is to make people feel comfortable. And to bring people closer, whether it's group settings, individually, personally, or professionally,
Right.
to make people feel comfortable, because I actually feel that's probably my biggest asset.
I would say.
And for me, to be able to do that and maybe help somebody that thinks either, wow, I'm misunderstood, or, I thought Eliot was this arrogant guy because he talked all the time, but he's really just a good guy trying to make me feel comfortable. And allowing that to happen and bring somebody in and let them realize, I don't care what you dress, how you look, what you feel. I want you to be comfortable and not feel misunderstood, because I do understand who you are.
Exactly. So how often do you think people feel as if they may be understood? Is this something that, from a conversational topic, that you've discussed with many people? It doesn't sound like maybe that's been the case, but
Well,
I'm
I
gonna
don't
toss
know.
it out there.
Think about when we worked together.
Sure.
And we worked side by side.
Yes.
A lot, on a lot of projects. And we would, as we've talked about many times, walk around the building or go to meetings together. And when we did, we'd leave that meeting, like everybody. We'd gossip a little bit and do our thing and talk about were they really misunderstood, or did we just not understand who they are as people and didn't really give them the opportunity, or we weren't open-minded enough to say, Jack's great, or Mary's wonderful, whatever. I mean, so give me some suggestions on how do you help people, right? As a coach, how do you help people?
Sure. So this is a topic that frequently comes up for me in conversations with people that I'm working with. So It's something that I'm very comfortable talking about, and I'm happy to dig in and share some of these tips.
Let's
I've
do it,
got
Murf.
quite a few of them for everyone today. So one of the things that I like to lead off with is to ask people how they might describe themselves in a few sentences or maybe some paragraphs if needed. Because when you, the person, take the time to be reflective upon who you are, that's going to help you in the situations where somebody might challenge you with, like, I don't get it. Like, why did you behave that way? You can explain why you act or reacted in that particular manner. Another thing to do would be to find out what key words you would use to express what makes you be you. So you describe yourself, I just heard you say that you're an extrovert and you talk to make people feel comfortable. Well, that's a great explanation to help people to understand who you are, and so that they just don't think like, Eliot just talks all the time and he just talks for the sake of hearing himself.
I hear that a lot. But part of it, Murf, and I don't want to lose your train of thought.
No.
It also makes me feel comfortable.
Exactly. So you're giving yourself a sense of being understood by talking, and then maybe conveying why you talk the amount that you do to make others feel comfortable. You're not doing it to make them feel misunderstood or uncomfortable. It's for a dual purpose. Another thing to think about from a tips perspective is, have you considered what motivates you? A lot of people are challenged sometimes with the fact that they're not quite sure. They may be able to name one thing, but typically there are more than one type of thing that will motivate somebody. So I challenge people to figure this out and to name what that could be. And then to break down this into categories of what motivates you based on, it could be different for what motivates you at work versus your personal life. And then taking a look at when you do write it down and you can physically see what's going on, if in fact there are some patterns in the sort of, taking a look at this combination of characteristics that you're going to see in these comparisons.
Sure.
And then if you do feel misunderstood, I tell people, have you thought about whether you feel this way due to a situation you're in? Is it situational? Or would you say you always feel this way? Because sometimes it could purely be situational. Let's face it, you and I will go to a party, which I can't wait to go to one day again, and we'll feel perfectly comfortable at a party. But other people we know will go to a party and not feel comfortable. They'll feel like, maybe they're an introvert. They may feel like people aren't going to understand me. I'm going to say the wrong thing. I don't like crowds, whatever the case may be. So keep in mind whether it's a situational component and whether you factor this in terms of why you think you might be misunderstood. And then perhaps it's because others really don't know much about you. You haven't given them the opportunity to learn what your other skills are and what other competencies you've had or have going on in your life, just because at work maybe you're so specialized that they haven't seen the fact that you know how to fly a plane, for instance.
Right.
You're an accountant, let's just say, and they just know you as an accountant. So I think it's really important to find opportunities for people to be less misunderstood by allowing people to come into your world. And I say that very frequently to people. Allow people to come into your world. Be vulnerable. It's really important to help you to be less misunderstood.
Right.
And then lastly for this particular section is, have you given others an opportunity really to get to know you? Like I said, be vulnerable. That sort of speaks to that particular line of thinking there.
Right.
And is it possible that you haven't expressed or communicated that information to somebody? And perhaps they're judging you unfairly and perhaps not fully appreciating who you are. So
Absolutely.
Give people an opportunity, and vice versa, right? So because we all know sometimes it's easy to criticize others and to not take
Not look in the mirror.
Right, exactly. Not look in the mirror. Do that.
Yep. Right.
So,
sure.
Do you have some suggestions that you can give people in terms of helping them to potentially be less misunderstood if they feel like they are?
Yeah, so you and I have not shared notes.
No.
You sent these to me weeks ago. We finally get together. We have not shared notes, but I wrote vulnerability.
Good.
And so talk about a party, professional, personal setting, getting together. It's easy for us, not easy for everybody, as we discussed. So I know I'm probably, again, being Captain Obvious. But the point is that vulnerability can be used as such a strength and such a tool to allow you to be a little more open-minded. So if you're an introvert, and I don't know, I don't live in that world.
Right.
But to be able to try baby steps, open up a little bit.
Yes.
I don't care if you have blue hair, red hair, green, you dress differently, it doesn't matter. I'm not judging you for that. And if you can stay open-minded enough to say, oh God, Eliot's looking at me for my fashion, or Eliot's looking at my hair, or doesn't think I'm smart enough to be able to do this.
Right.
And we actually have a discussion. What a great way to leverage your strengths and use me as that strength builder, if you will, because I am open-minded, and I do want you to feel comfortable and get in that situation where you start to open up just a little bit.
Exactly. And I'm glad that you brought up the open-minded concept, because I think more people are probably open-minded than others give them credit. And I think that people tend to err on thinking that people are more conservative and less open-minded than they really are. So I think when you do that, you're not giving people credit for potentially being that way. And I think that that's an unfortunate judgment that sometimes gets cast, and potentially why people feel like they're being misunderstood, because they in fact are projecting their thought that somebody's not going to be open-minded and willing to get to know them, right? So
goes both ways, right?
So I always, generally when I'm meeting new people, I just think that everyone's open-minded. I literally have that thought in my mind when I'm meeting new people. Whether they are or not, I'm probably going to figure that out. You'd figure that out conversationally pretty quickly. But if you go in with an open mind, it's remarkable what the outcome can be.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So my kids have said to me for years, oh my God, Dad, open your mind, right? They're just people. And I've got better at it. I was not, I'll be the first to admit, when looking at somebody that looked different, didn't dress the same, different fashion sense, brand, I'd look and go, that's interesting. Now I'm like, okay, cool.
Yes.
And so I credit my kids for making me,
I love that,
not feel, I guess, these people aren't misunderstood.
No.
6 years old, Kathy Murphy's brand was different. Her fashion brand was different at 6 because you wanted to break away.
Yes.
What do I care if somebody dresses different? I don't care.
Right, exactly.
It doesn't bother me.
That's right.
I think it's actually I actually think now how cool it is compared to we have to all wear the same and look the same and act the same.
Conform.
The world would be boring, wouldn't it?
It sure would be. There's a comment, variety is a spice of life, and I just love that saying, because it's true. If we all like the same things, if we all did the same things, if we all had only the same friends, it would be dreadfully boring. So I do have some more tips, and so in a team situation, I like to invite people to think about having someone on the team and whether that person would be an advocate for them, because there's generally at least going to be one person, hopefully your manager, but maybe somebody else on the team that's either influential or that potentially just thinks that you're amazing and will be an advocate for you, especially in conversations when it's important, if somebody else is maybe being disparagingly negative against you as a comment, let's just say, whether it's based on something that you did on a project or maybe a comment that you made, that person can be an advocate to say, no, wait, hang on. Let's discuss this. That's not what they meant. They did it this way on that project for these reasons. We all need to find those advocates. It's really critical to be able to find someone that's going to represent you favorably all the time. And then if you don't have somebody that can be your champion, your advocate, if you will, you're going to need to potentially take on that role yourself and be your own public relations firm, which is why I go back to some of the tips that I mentioned earlier in terms of literally writing down in terms of how to explain yourself to others. And then besides finding that champion for yourself, that person, in addition to helping you to be that advocate for yourself, can help to change people's perceptions for you. And I'll talk a little bit more about an example that I have relating to that, if you will. And then in your experience, how quickly in situations where you've maybe been that advocate for somebody and you hadn't even thought about this potentially, did you see things turn around and change as a result of you being that champion or advocate for that person that was misunderstood?
Right, right. So again, misunderstood in whose eyes?
Right.
Right? So
Yep,
again,
start
if
there.
you can't look in the mirror, and if you're looking and passing judgment, are they really misunderstood, that person, or is it you that's not understanding?
That's right.
And so for me, I have had that situation, and again, it goes back to how do I help people that other people may look at differently. So for me to befriend or take the time to be with somebody, and I'm going to use professional or personal, it doesn't matter. I've had many situations when they all of a sudden are by your side and people look at you as being an open-minded guy or a extrovert and easy to get along with, and someone looks and says, wow, all of a sudden Mary's standing next to Eliot, and Eliot's open-minded enough, so Mary must be pretty cool.
That's right.
Just because she dresses different, thinks different. Association
Sure.
is the key. And I always go back to that because, again, I know the acquired taste thing,
Sure.
but I don't care.
Right.
I want you to try to understand me, but get to know me.
Right.
I'm only the way I am because of comfortness.
That's right.
And if that's a word, and to bring people in. So what about you?
So I have a couple of examples here in terms of somebody that I acted as champion for. There was a young person on a team that was a sports team where the parents didn't understand this particular person on the team, and I had heard some negative comments related to this person, and it really bothered me, and I spoke up and I said, do you know that person well? Have you interacted with them? And they were kind of a little shocked that I interjected like that. And I called them out on the situation. And I said, this person is an amazing person. And you may not know these things about this person. And from that moment on, there was a completely different shift in dynamic in the thinking towards that young person going forward. And that was just one of the most heartwarming examples of how I've seen just a complete 180 that people have done based on me being an advocate, especially for someone young. I thought that was really important. We both have kids. I'm constantly reminding my kids when they are maybe saying something negative about the other sibling, you don't understand them, and I really encourage you to take some time to get to understand them, because just because you think that way, it may not be the right line of thinking.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so I have 2 daughters and a son, and my daughters are older than my son, but they say, just going back to exactly what you just said, always, he's this, he's that, I said, do you really think that he's that way? Because he's not.
Exactly.
Give him a chance.
Give him a chance.
He's
Exactly.
not dumb. He's not this. He's not that.
No.
He's a really smart kid. He just looks at things differently.
Precisely.
Than that we look at things, or you may look at things.
And that is perfectly fine.
Misunderstood.
That's right, exactly. So in terms of the outcomes from what I've helped people to be able to do, and I'm sure you have as well, is from helping them to be better understood, is I've helped them to find jobs, I've helped them to become more social, I've helped them to be more confident in themselves, and basically at the end of the day, most importantly, is to be happier with themselves. And so I feel really good about having covered this topic with you today, Eliot, and want to thank you for joining in, even though I really challenged you on this one. I think
you
it was
did challenge
a
me,
good
and thank you
challenge.
for making me think. It was great.
You're welcome. It was a lot of fun in doing that. So I just want to thank everybody for tuning in today, and come back and see us again for another fantastic show that we'll have in store for you the next time. Take care, everybody. Thanks, Eliot.
Thanks, Murf.